All right, we're heading into section 3 of mod 3, 3.3, and we're moving on to subtraction. Okay, now if you can add, you can subtract. All right, so the essential question is simply, how do I subtract rational numbers? And once again, we've got to keep in mind all of our rules about positive negatives. We have to keep in mind remembering how do we deal with fractions and mixed numbers, Psst, common denominator. And if we have decimals, simply line up your decimal points, okay? Then really, to subtract, it's just adding in disguise. You add the opposite. As long as you can remember that, it's just like all the adding that we've done. So let's take a look at this first one where we have positive numbers. The temperature outdoor on an outdoor thermometer on Monday was 5 5/10 degrees Celsius. The temperature on Thursday was 7.25 degrees less than the temperature on Monday. All right, so this is basically a subtraction question. Write this down right next to it. 5 5/10 minus 7 25/100. I always immediately match up and make sure I have the same number of decimal places, even when I'm going, even when I have it written horizontally like this. Now, I just got done emphasizing that subtraction means add the opposite. In other words, think of that negative sign kind of sticking with this 7 25/100. Okay, so it's kind of like we start at 0. You went up 5 1/2, and then you have to come backwards 7 1/4. So from 5 1/2, well, first we get back to 0. That's 5 1/2. Okay, and then this would be 6 1/2. And we don't want to be 7 1/2. We want to be about 1/4 less than that. On a number line, it gets a little trickier, okay? And so I think it's probably easier to at least use the number line to think that, oh yes, I'm going to end up in negative territory. Actually, that's positive 5 1/2. But I would line up my decimal points. I know my answer is negative. Take the absolute value of the two numbers and find the difference. Remember, different signs, difference, and go from here. Okay, 6, 1.75 or 1 3/4 or 1 75/100. It's kind of hard to illustrate on a number line, which is why I say, for me at least, it's easier to line up the decimal points and do it that way. All right, on these, they're suggesting that you use the number line. You can just use that to kind of get a ballpark and then actually line up your decimals or your fractions and go from there. But I want you to understand that that first number remains the same or original. Change this subtract to add, and the 2 becomes -2. It's like -6.5 and -2. So I was up here at 0. I come way back here to -6.5. And adding -2 means I have to go back 2 more. And you should land here. Personally, I would think of it this way. -6 5/10. Same sign. Actually, let me do this. Same sign, find the sum. Take the absolute value of those two, line up the decimal point, put your answer right there. Look at these two, 1 1/2 minus 2. Think of this as 1 1/2 plus -2. Keep this first one and change subtraction to add the opposite. So here we are at 1 1/2, and then we're going to subtract 2. So I go back 1 and 2. You end up in negative territory, just barely. Okay. Different signs, find the difference. Take the absolute value of each of these and subtract. Now, when this happens, danger, danger, you don't have a fraction here but you really do. Think of it as 0 halves. And you can't take 0 minus the 1, so you borrow from this guy. And when you borrow 1 and turn it into a common denominator, that's 2 halves. 2 halves minus the 1 half is 1 half. 1 minus 1 is 0. We often don't even write that 0. It's 1 half. However, I know my answer has to be negative. So all of these are 2 parts. Decide on the sign, and then decide on the number value of your answer. Negative 2.25. Change this to add the opposite. Okay, so negative 2.25 plus a negative 5.5. I should say these properly. Negative 2 and 25 hundredths and negative 5 and 5 tenths. Okay, immediately what I would do is realize that this has 2 decimal places, this has 2 decimal places. Same sign, sum, although since they're both negative, it's kind of like you went back this much and you're going back that much more. You're way into negative land for your answer, but same sign means take the sum of the absolute values. And boom, chuckalacka. Almost to negative 8, but not quite. All right, let's look at a few more. Subtracting negatives. During the hottest week of the summer, the water level of the Muskrat River was 5/6 foot below normal. The following week, the level was 1/3 foot below normal. What is the overall change? Okay. When you want to find the change, they're asking for the difference. And you always take the final minus the original or the beginning. Since both of these are below, I need you to think of these two numbers as negative 5/6 and negative 1/3. And since this is where we ended up, we're starting with negative 1/3, and then we're going to subtract negative 5/6. Find the difference. The first number stays the same. Add the opposite. Now, can't add fractions until you have a common denominator. So look at thirds and sixths. Now listen, you could use 18ths. You know, there's always that argument that if you just multiply the two together, that is a common denominator. But if you can find something smaller, it does make it a little easier. I'm going to just leave it as sixths and go from here, which would give me a positive number. Different signs means I'm going to find the difference. Notice that they've already set up the number line here in sixths. So if you get this visual, I'm going backwards 2/6 to be negative, and then I have to come forward 5 of them, and I land right here. Okay, which is 3/6, which is 1/2. This is a word problem, 1/2 of a foot. That was the overall change. Now, if that messes you up, sometimes, frankly, it's easier to think of it more as a vertical thing. Since we're talking about the elevation of a river, here's the deal. And I need more room, so I'm going to jump down here for a second, okay? Let's go like this. Let's say this is normal, okay? And the beginning here, or the first value, was we were down 5/6. So if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 5/6. And then here is negative 1. So this is where I start, right there. And then I was only 1/3 of a foot, which is 2/6 below normal. So I started here, and then I ended at negative 2/6. And they want to know, how much did it change? Well, I started here, and then it went up 3/6. That's positive 3/6, which is 1/2. Sometimes a picture makes more sense. All right, on these, and I'm just going to tell you, let's not worry about the number line anymore. I just want you to start thinking about this. Subtraction means add the opposite. So this is really 25 hundredths plus 1 and 5 tenths, or 50 hundredths. When you add these together, you should get 1 3/4. Subtraction means add the opposite. And when you have fractions, you must have a common denominator. So I have -1/2, which is really -2/4. And then I am adding a +3/4. I have a common denominator. I have a negative and a positive. Different signs means find the difference. -2 and +3. My answer is positive, and you should end up with 1. We got one more here to go. Here they put an actual vertical number line because I think this makes sense when we're talking about elevation. So this one's about a cave. So the cave explorer is going in. I don't know if you've ever been climbing in a cave and you go and if it gets really narrow, you have to start crawling, and they call that, I think, spelunking. I get kind of claustrophobic, so not for me. Climbed from an elevation of -11 meters. So here's where we're starting. This is the start. To an elevation of -5 meters. Here's where I'm ending. So I went from here to here. How much is this change? If you use the picture, you're going to say, hello, I am increasing or going up, and I went from 11 below to 5 below, so it's really 6 meters. But let me show you mathematically how this works, okay? What this means is you always take the end minus the start, okay? Or the final minus the original, or the begin. So we ended at -5, and we subtract our starting number, which was -11. And you look at this and you say, ufta ishta. There's way too many negative signs here. So thank goodness we have this philosophy that subtraction means add the opposite, which would be +11. So it's -5 plus 11. Decide on your sign. It's a big tug of war. The positive team has more strength. It's going to win. So my answer is positive. Different signs. Find the difference between these two. Boom. Make sure you label your answer. Okay. So our summary today. Subtraction doesn't really exist. To subtract, you should add the opposite. Always, always, always. And then proceed just like you would in section 2. All right. I don't know that I guess I'll just re-emphasize common denominators. Oh, can I spell this morning? I don't think so. Can tell who has not had enough coffee yet. Me. Denominator. Why is that word hard to spell? Goodness sakes, sound it out. Common denominator. Line up your decimals. Let's see, what else? Same sign, sum, the absolute values. Same sign, sum. I'll abbreviate absolute value right there. Different signs. Find the difference of the absolute values. Okay. Whew. Look on Schoology for your assignment. And as always, good luck and may the force be with you.